From this video, I want pretty much everybody to get that we're made in America.
We have two buildings. So Tops has always been located in Idaho, Idaho Falls area. The first several years, really until about 2014, 2015, they kind of moved from shop to shop, area to area. In 2015, we landed in a pretty large building in an area it's called Yukon. This building is about 30,000 square feet. This is where we do all of our finishing. The other building where we have all the heavy machinery, all the CNC machines, surface grinders, that's in Rigby, Idaho, which is, 10 minutes away from Idaho Falls. We kind of live in this niche between what I would call like a full-on production house and a custom house. We're doing some of each in every single knife that we make. And a lot of custom knife makers, they talk about how every knife has a soul. It gets its soul once it's heat treated, and then every process after that heat treat that's all done by hand, it makes every knife at least a little bit unique. I think main things that separate us from a lot of other companies would be that the depth of our catalog, how many models we're able to produce. There's other companies that approach it from like, we're gonna make 1 or 2 knives in this size range and that's it. That's not necessarily how we view things. We view things like, yeah, we might be able to make 10 or 15 models that are all the same size range, but they all have a different purpose. Some for hunting, some for survival, some for tactical, some for food, some for whatever other use case kind of comes up.
Some of the people we have that we do collaborations with, I'm not sure if other companies do that. And I know they do it here and there, but to have as many as we have, I don't think so.
We're one of the only production companies, if not the only one, that is consistently doing a differential heat treat on 1095. We like the differential heat treat because it creates a knife that can stand maybe just a little bit more abuse without snapping than something that's fully hardened. We focus on the performance and the durability part. The price is what it is, when it comes down to it. Like, we don't necessarily try to say, like, how can we make this knife cheaper? Because that's where you start cutting corners. That's where you start using materials that aren't as good. That's where you start, using something that, or just making it slightly differently so that you can save a buck. That's not really the goal for us. We try to make them as inexpensive as possible, but not at the expense of performance or durability.
A lot of our stuff gets put through the ringer because they have to prove that they can break a tops, they can hurt a tops, but they withstand some abuse. We make blades that people can depend on and can use, not just a little, safe princess or whatever. There's the benefit of being made in America. You're supporting American families. You give us a phone call, and if there's something we did wrong, we'll send you a brand new blade. You're not gonna have to go through 27 different calls and different people to get your warranty issues. What people get wrong about our knives, I'm gonna start off with the steel. 1095 is our 89% of the steel we use. And everybody thinks of it old school, but what they're sort of missing is that that's one of the ways we can keep our prices lower. Everybody sees it as not a super steel, and why don't you go to super steels? If we switch everything to high-end steels, or the super steels, they're going to be paying a fortune for these things.
One of the other things that I think where we're misunderstood a lot is especially in the last 2-3 years, I've heard it just more and more. People will come to our table at a booth, look at our table, they'll see anywhere from 150 to 250 knives at our booth on the table, each model different. And a lot of people have this question, like, are they really made in Idaho? How do you make this many knives? How is that possible? I have a hard time understanding it myself. Like, when I look at what we do every single year, and I look at how many models we have and how we keep track of everything and stock the screws and the barrels and the glues and just everything so that stuff runs smoothly, that's crazy. That's a lot. That's a lot to keep straight.
American made is jobs for my people, my family. Everybody that works for me, whether I hire them, the first thing I tell them, you join in my family. So being able to provide for them, first of all, and their families is my thing. And then, American made, American made is quality, I know, yeah, it's a little bit more expensive, but, you're comparing something that they're making overseas for pennies, bringing it over here, like, there's no pride, there's no life in that. American made is the way it is.
Made in the USA, why it's important is because why would you want something that had to travel across the ocean to get to you? You're supporting somebody somewhere with every single item that you purchase. Why not have it support people in the country that you live in? Anytime I can get something made in the US, or even more specifically made in Idaho or made nearby, to me that's important. It is not to say that knives made in other places are not good. We have a relationship with companies in Italy. Like the folders that we sell, they're made in Italy. Everybody knows that. We don't hide it. Says so on the box. They're great knives. There's absolutely nothing wrong with those knives. I have 2 of our folders, but anytime I can, I'll buy something made in the US.
Buy America. Buy American made. Support American companies, whether it's knives, whether it's clothing, whatever it is. You're supporting American families.
There are a surprising number of steps when it comes to making a knife, especially with like a production type environment. A lot of people, they look at a piece of metal and then they look at a knife and they're like, that can't be too hard. There can't be too many steps involved, but there really is. So the way we do it, we do what's called stock removal. We start with sheets of steel. We cut them into strips. Then we cut them into bars. The bars are what go onto the machine. When we cut them into strips, we typically will use a shear. If there are sheets that are too large to fit on our shear, then there's another place in town that has a large shear that we can use from time to time. Basically, we'll shear strips. That'll be like a long piece of metal. Then we'll cut that long piece of metal into smaller bars. Then we're gonna go to the CNC machines. We're gonna cut out what we would call the profile of the knife. So the profile would just be the shape of the knife. From the profile, we then go to surface grinding. And we surface grind to make sure that all of the knives are the same thickness or as close to the exact same thickness as possible. When we go to put them on the machines to do the tapers, if the thickness from blade to blade varies, your actual tapers and your bevels aren't going to line up perfectly. You're going to have a knife that is not totally symmetrical the way it should be. After the surface grinding, we'll put them back into the CNC machines and we do what is called the taper. That's what we call it. Most people call that the bevel or the grind. We get the bevel or the grind close to where we want it, and then we finish that by hand. Pretty much everything from there on is done by hand. We'll take those to a grinder, grind off the machine marks, make sure that the bevels are nice and even, make sure the edge thickness is consistent before we go to heat treat. After that, typically heat treat's going to be the next, I guess there's a tumbling step in the middle there. We got to deburr the metal, especially coming right off the CNC machines. After the deburring, then we're going to heat treat. So we're doing those one by one in a forge, the way that you would see on Forge and Fire when they heat treat their knife and then quench it. So we're going to do an oil quench on 1095. That's the way it has to be done. After that, you temper the blade. That's done in an oven. You relieve the stress, reduce the hardness just a little bit, so you get rid of the brittle, stressed out piece of metal, and now you have a knife. After that, we're gonna do a sandblasting step to get rid of the oil and all the scale. Then we're gonna coat the blades. Then they're gonna come to our second building. If it's powder coat, that happens in one building. If it's Cerakote, that happens in the other building. But either way, pretty much all of our 1095 blades have some kind of finish on them. Once that finish is applied, then we're going to engrave, then we're going to assemble, then we're going to sharpen, then we're going to quality control, aka fitting, so knife goes with its sheath. From there, we're going to ship. That's just the blade. I haven't even brought up the handle material, the sheaths, and each of these processes, or each of these things that we make have multiple processes. There's fewer steps to make the handles, but we make them very similar to the way we would make the blades. We start off with sheets of material, similar to the steel. We buy it in the different colors, the different thicknesses. We'll cut them down into a manageable size to fit on the machine, and then we'll do glue ups based on what knife the handle is going to be for. We put them on the machine and we cut them out CNC, very similar to the way we would do the profiles on the blades. So there's only, typically with the handles, there's only a couple of steps on the machine. It's really cut the profile, cut the holes, add a radius or a handle tread, and then they're ready to come off the machine. Usually there's a little bit of hand work on the handles, especially any handle that has our X pattern on it. Those are going to be done by hand. We can do the X pattern on the machine, but it looks better and feels better done by hand. After that, there's usually a little bit of a blasting step to help make sure that there's the right amount of grip on the handles. We don't like to polish micarta. We don't like to polish G10. Once you've polished it, you lose a lot of the grip. If I had to put like a percentage, like how much is machine done and how much is hand done, it's fairly close to 50-50. You know, maybe 60% on the machine side, 40 on the hand side. The hardest step, I guess, I would say that like final fit and finish, there's a lot that goes into that. You know, any little thing that goes wrong along the way, it's a deal breaker.
I'm not taking tops anywhere else. Everything I do and will do is here. Idaho, baby. This is who we are and where we're gonna be. Everybody watching, if you like this video, like you like this content, just let us know. You know, like the video, subscribe, give us some of your feedback, what you guys want to see, and you know, we'll do more of it.